welcome to episode 15 of the Flag to Flag podcast. My name is Chad Barker. Alongside me is the Motorsports Enthusiast, aka John Dirugeris. John, how we feeling?
Good. Feeling good now that we are on our second take. Our first one had internet difficulties, so we have solved that.
Is it really a Flag to Flag podcast episode if we don't have technical difficulties?
No, it's not. We always have something going on. I'm going to be checking my internet speed periodically through this. I was actually going to say, hey, move your camera down a little bit. It's typically like that. But yeah, here we are, episode 15, first podcast of 2024. Got nothing going on racing wise, no cars on the track for some of the top three series, but we do have some dirt track racing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some other breaking news going on in Formula One and NASCAR. But let's start off with, how have you been? We haven't seen you in 2 months. So what's been going on in your world?
It has been a while since we last uploaded. The holidays were a very stressful time for me, very stressful time for you. And so we were just like, me and John, we don't want to produce bad episodes. We don't want to produce bad content, so we're like, we're not in a position to, where we can produce good content. So we want to wait until we did. And so, so that's why we've been a little bit radio silent. We've been a little bit active on some of our social media, but yeah, so it's been, but I've been good. It was great to go back home, see the family. I got to see you, John. Believe it or not, I believe that is the second time since we've started the podcast I've actually seen you in person.
And both times have been, well, no. The first time was at the Grand Prix. The second time was, we went go-karting.
And we went go-karting.
You technically won 2 out of the 3, but the last one we're kind of scratching.
No one won that last one. No one won that last one. That was rough, but
so we're even. So so everybody who's listening, I beat the race car driver.
All right. Well, we're even. So which means we got to go again.
0.3 of a second. By 0.3 of a second.
That is true. That is.
Or wait,
true.
no, actually, no. Was it 0.3?
I don't know.
It was close.
It was pretty close. Actually, I think it was like 300s because it was pretty freaking close.
It was,
but I guess that means we got to go again sometimes. But you're in a bit of a different location. But yeah, how have you been?
Good. Yeah, end of year is stressful for me with business and all, getting marketing plans ready for 2024. So that was a little bit of a stressful time. But yeah, I'm in a new location. I am considering this the den space. Moved from my office, so this is actually my sim rig I'm sitting in. I have my wheel here, got my pedals, got my monitor, got my computer right here. So in a new uploading spot, which is fun because I want to get behind the wheel right now. I want to do some racing. Maybe we could do a live iRacing episode where we're both on. I don't know if we have the capabilities of doing that, but having that go on. But yeah, I've been good. Ready just for some racing. It's been a second. We've had some dirt track racing, which we'll get to in a couple later segments. So if you're into dirt track racing, definitely stick around for those. Just ready for racing to get started back up here soon. But yeah, we got some news.
Yeah, let's
today.
Get into it.
Actually, today, starting with F1. Right.
I was sitting in class when this came out, and whenever I see something come out, I automatically send it to John.
Yep.
And half the time he's already seen it, half the time, he's good. So when I got the word damn in all capital letters, I was like, oh my gosh, like he doesn't know about this. One of people's favorite personalities in the Formula One paddock, one of the stars of Drive to Survive, is gone. Guenther Steiner has been sacked by Haas Formula One team, which, in my opinion, is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. When you first shared that with me, I was in the middle of my main business, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is crazy.
But I don't think anyone saw that coming.
No, I don't think anybody did. But when you kind of dive into it a little bit, you're like, okay, I can kind of see it. So, Haas F1 has not been strong. They haven't had good results. They were last in team points last year, which says something to the organization, because when you beat Williams, or when Williams beats you, I'm just saying the last couple years, there's something wrong, because Williams has been one of the second to lower tier teams in all of Formula One. Haas was last in team points, and when you look at that, when you look at who they have with Magnussen, I mean, they got talented drivers. and they haven't had the success. Now, a lot of times they get collected in things. A lot of time that gets reflected back to the team principal. So, I think this is an interesting move. I don't agree or disagree, but I think something definitely needed to change. So if you haven't heard, they brought in their previous director of engineering, Komatsu. I mispronounced his first name, so I'm going to call him Komatsu, his last name. But he's been with around the Haas since the inception. So they have high expectations at Haas. Gene Haas has high expectations, and they needed a change. And it sucks because we've seen Guenther be a part of NASCAR broadcasts at COTA. He's been probably one of the most influential figures when it comes to the Drive to Survive success along personality lines. And plus, people love him, but a lot of people hate him in the paddock. So it's a very mixed bag of emotions when it comes to him not being the principal. So I don't know. I'm going to ask you this. What do you think? What is this going to do to Haas? Are they going to have a better
Well,
year or a worse year? Is this good or bad? What's your
well,
take?
well, well, like you said, since Haas has entered the scene in Formula One, it hasn't been the prettiest of sights. Yes, they've had their moments. They had they had Brill. I almost said Pole at Brazil as one word. Brazil, that's good. But
Good.
they almost
Nice.
had Pole at Brazil last year, which was or 2 years ago. Super exciting, and then when they debuted the new car, they had points off the bat. And so it's been, they've had their ups and downs, and, sometimes they get caught up in stuff. Sometimes, they have reliability issues, which doesn't always fall on the engineer's shoulders. But at the end of the day, the engineer sometimes is the face of the team. We see that with Toto Wolff and Christian Horner, okay? But then you look at something like Zach Brown, who he's not a race engineer, but he's kind of the face of the McLaren Formula One team. Now, the bad thing about this is two things. One is not the end of the world with this, which is the Drive to Survive, which I always look forward to seeing Drive to Survive, Guenther Steiner. He's a fantastic personality, and he's that raw emotion, you see a lot of Formula One guys. You see a lot of people involved in Formula One trying to put on their best act, he doesn't care. He wears it on his sleeves, all right? And that's what I love. But I feel like the real kind of bad thing is kind of the team chemistry. That's going to be a big mix-up right there.
Agreed.
Whenever you see a driver change or anything like that in NASCAR, you see, a driver go from one team to another, but what you don't see necessarily often is 9 times out of 10, the spotter is moving with them too, because there's that spotter chemistry. All right. We saw it when Bubba Wallace went from Petty Enterprises to 2311, his I believe his crew chief went too with him as well. So that was pretty interesting as well. But so you need to have that team chemistry in there to kind of have that connection, Engineers know what the drivers do and don't want to hear. Some drivers want to hear what their gap is every single lap. Other drivers might want to hear it every 5 to 10 laps. So it's pretty interesting how that stuff goes. And so I feel bad for Guenther, but at the end of the day, Formula One is a business. Formula One is a sport, on the business side. Gene Haas, they have had pretty decent success. I mean, or I would say even pretty good success on the NASCAR Cup Series side. Multiple championships. And then Gene Haas with his machining company, he goes, so Gene Haas is putting a lot of money into this, which also means he has a high level of expectancy. I am combining words today for some reason.
You are. You're making up words as we go.
I don't know. I'm back in school. I haven't been schooling a little while.
We need to have a flag-to-flag dictionary for all the new words you're creating in 2024.
All the new words I can make. We'll make a compilation of it at some point. But yeah, so that's kind of the big things within Formula One. I mean, you got anything else to say about that?
No, I mean, I'm going to be very curious to see how Haas performs. With as big of a position as team principal is, it's one that going internal, I think, is definitely the right move. If they would have brought somebody external into this from another team or whatever, maybe I think I would be like, okay, that's a little bit, I expect them to maybe not have great success, but since it's an internal hiring and an internal promotion, essentially, I think this could be a good move for them. So that's interesting to see there. We had, AlphaTauri, you had Racing Bulls, you have Stake F1 team, all these new names that are popping up, with all these teams. So you have the Stake F1 money. I can't remember the entire name because it's way too long, but you have the Stake F1 team
All these names are getting
essentially.
real long now.
They are. It's ridiculous. You have them entering. You have down the line there's going to be Audi. There's going to be potentially Adidas at some point. Maybe you never know what's going to happen. But another big thing that's been a topic of conversation has been Ford. Ford's been really stepping up what they're doing from a motorsport perspective. Going to tie this back to Formula One, but we have them with their new Ford GT3 car that looks great. They have the new Dark Horse Mustang that's going to be the staple car in the NASCAR Cup Series, and then you have them becoming the power unit supplier for Red Bull. So it's going to be Ford, or it's going to be Red Bull, Ford Red Bull, or Red Bull, or Red Bull Honda. So Red Bull Ford or Ford Red Bull, whatever it's going to be.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So they're Ford is really making their name in the world of motorsport. Not like they haven't been, but they are really diversifying what they do, and it's cool to see. So you have a lot of big changes coming up here in the next few years involving manufacturers, powertrains, team names, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and something else to think about as well. Going back to Haas, who's the manufacturer for Stewart Haas Racing in the Cup Series?
Ford.
So is there a chance that we might see Ford go to Haas or some of these other guys? Right now Haas has the Ferrari power unit, which it has its moments, but
I mean, it's good. It's good for Ferrari.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not good for Haas.
no, but I mean, it's so yeah, you get stuff like that, and it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to see, usually when we see a lot of these changes or anything, a lot of people are excited for preseason testing because you get to see what these guys have been working on. You get to see these cars, but we're really going to see, you can plan however you want to do. We can see all this stuff, but guess what? All that goes out the window when lights go out. So
100%.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in preseason testing and when lights go out in Bahrain. And just, I think you said about 2 months from now.
Yeah, March 2nd is going to be the first race for Formula One in Bahrain. So that's going to be fun to watch. So yeah, let's move on from Formula One to NASCAR. So starting with some other news that just dropped today. Netflix has Drive to Survive. Well, NASCAR now has their Netflix documentary called NASCAR Full Speed. If you haven't checked out the trailer, it's pretty cool. It definitely it goes with NASCAR, and the trailer. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think it captured the essence of what I liked about NASCAR when I first started watching, and that's all I'm going to say. I think there's going to be a lot of different views on this. I'm very excited for this because this is one of the first of its kind involving Netflix, and Netflix has a long line of very good sport documentaries. Look at Full Swing, look at Drive to Survive. One of the top two out there regarding their sporting documentary series. So I think it's going to be great. I saw at the end that the Ryan Preece wreck. That was at the end of the trailer, so I'm going to be very curious to see cinematically how they create that. But I'm excited. I'm excited for it, Chad. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and going off what you said with that Ryan Preece wreck, obviously it was a very scary wreck. I remember watching that live. It was one of those rare moments nowadays where I actually get, I don't have words, and so. But what I'm worried about is that I don't want them, because we see this a lot in Drive to Survive, which they got better at it last year. But when they was first coming out, it was like that. It was but just over dramatizing it.
We've talked about that, yeah.
And NASCAR, it is drama filled, and it really is, which it was a very exciting season, all right. Drama wise, I mean, we had Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson go at it.
Oh, you got to fight. Yeah, you got fights. You got arguments. You have Denny Hamlin being the villain. But I think they learned their lesson. I'd like to say they did. But as a race fan, as somebody who has watched Drive to Survive, how it's evolved and how they have focused a little bit more on the racing, I hope they, for the racing fans' perspective, put more racing into it, because that's what I want to see. But we all know why Drive to Survive was so successful. It wasn't because of the racing. It was because of the personalities, because all the behind the scenes. It was the drama, and people want to see that. So there's probably going to be a decent amount of it. I mean, that's what's going to create the the suspense. It's going to
Oh
create
yeah.
that, and also we have to remember this is not the full season. This is just going to be the championship race, so it's going to be 10 races at the end. So you're not going to be. Well, actually, is that correct? Because wasn't Ryan Preece's wreck the race
Ryan
before
Preece
the
was the
playoffs?
race before the playoffs, and so what I believe is that what I think I heard was the main focus is going to be the playoffs. Because you can't just look at the playoffs. All right, you got to look at the entire season as
What
a whole.
happened? Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of what you said, yes, I've seen Drive to Survive get better over the years, but another thing that, I mean, yes, you're going to have to dramatize it a little bit. It's show business, it's entertainment. You have to dramatize, you have to keep the viewer entertained. I took TV and film production in high school. I understand a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm really excited to see, which is another reason I felt like Drive to Survive did really well, is because you saw the other side of these guys, You saw them in their cars, you saw them in the garages, you saw them focused, but then you saw them with their families, and that's what I'm really excited to see, because I like kind of seeing those guys outside, you see a lot of guys who, like Ryan Newman. He is one of the reasons I really liked him was because when he wasn't racing, he was on his farm with his cattle. All right,
Yeah.
like he
look at Ross Chastain.
Ross Chastain being
He's
a watermelon farmer,
which
Ross Chastain will be racing in the it's a very long and lengthy name, but he will be racing at Chris Motorsports Park in Speedfest for Rackley War and their pro late model or super late model, one of the two. If it's the pro late model, he'll be racing in the 100-lap race. If it's the super late model, it'll be the 150-lap race.
Cool.
Which I believe will be not this weekend, but the next. So,
nice.
Very excited to see that. Actually, hold on. Let me see. Is it this week? It might be this weekend. It might be this weekend. I'll look it up later, but so that's very exciting. But but also kind of talking and staying on a bit of this NASCAR stuff. We had the repave of Sonoma. Also
looks great. Oh my gosh,
looks beautiful, and kind of going from something that looks beautiful to something that doesn't look so beautiful. I think you know where this is going, because we haven't filmed. I don't think we've released a podcast since this came out. The new Toyota.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so I gotta say, let's back this up. Toyota came out with the new design for their Camry. It looks a lot like, I can't remember the name of the Toyota vehicle, the production car. I can't remember, but it looks very similar to that. It doesn't look like a Camry from years past. Originally, I was like, this car sucks. And I'm still on that train a little bit. It looks better with the paint schemes on it, I have to say.
Yes, I do agree with that.
But comparatively to the Dark Horse Mustang and a Camaro,
I remember when the Camaro came out, it looked mean. It was like it's ready to race.
The angled front nose. I mean, it looks like
my gosh. And then we had kind of the Ford we had the Ford Fusion, I'm pretty sure it was the Ford Fusion or something like that for a long time within NASCAR. And then they came out with the Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved that, and I'm like you, I'm a Camaro guy, I'm a Chevy guy. I loved that. And so, but, we've seen the same Toyota Camry front end for a long time. And a lot of the teams liked it because when they went to those drafting tracks, there was a lot of characteristics on the nose that made it harder for other guys to, to do that stuff. So there was a lot of expectation, and I feel like they didn't live up to it, but at the end of the day, cash is king. And it's going to be interesting. I doubt it'll affect the performance that much with these cars, but yeah, it'll be, you're getting some sunlight on you now.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm trying. I saw like a little. It was in the sunlight, like a little dust thing starting flying around. I was like, okay, but if I move up just a little bit, I turn just absolutely pale. But yeah, I think that out of the top three, it hurts me to say this, but I think the Dark Horse Mustang looks the best. It's a mean looking machine. I really like how they have adjusted the hood and also the fenders over the wheel well. I think it looks just incredibly mean. If they had a Dodge Challenger in there, you would be looking at that would just be, that'd be incredible if Dodge came back. But obviously, that's not happen. Or will it happen? You never
I don't know.
know
And
because
there's
Chevrolet stopped producing Camaros. They're done.
so
So
yeah, so that's going to be interesting. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I had some people thinking about possibly doing a Corvette, but I don't know how that would really fit into the stock
How,
car style
how does
because
the
the
Camry?
Camaro. Well, that is true, but you look at the Mustang and the Camaro, it kind of has that that kind of boxy end. I don't want to call it boxy, but it's kind of what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that kind of fits in well with it. But yeah, but one more thing before we get into all the dirt racing stuff. And
Cool.
you know more about this. Some news came out earlier this week, and John, why don't you just take this away?
Yeah.
I don't know all the
100%.
details, so I really want you
Cool.
to kind
Sure.
of.
So if you're in the racing scene, you know Ray Evernham. He was the crew chief for Jeff Gordon. Had Ray Evernham, his team with Jeremy Mayfield and Bill Elliott, I believe, drove for him at one point in time. And Ray Evernham was a supporter and one of the partners in SRX, the SRX series. Well, as of years late, he hasn't really been as big of a proponent in that. So, news came out a few days ago that him and Rob Kaufman, they have both formed iRock Holdings LLC and have bought all the rights and everything behind the iRock series, the International Race of Champions. It ran for about 30 years, from the 70s to the early mid 2000s. And so iRock is apparently supposed to be making a comeback. Apparently, Ray Evernham has a huge garage of iRock cars. I don't know if this is entirely confirmed or not, but apparently they are going to have some sort of race, or they anticipate having a race in 2024. I think it's really cool. I think depending on how they do this, I don't know if it's going to be something where they create brand new IROC cars or if they use existing ones, or it's almost like what you see at some of these heritage car races where they have a lot of different forms of motorsport racing at the same time. I think it's going to be an event. There's going to be an event. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what cars they're going to use because they had a lot of cars. They had Firebirds. They had Camaros. They had so many different cars throughout the years. But the point of iRock was to have cars that were produced the exact same. So essentially what SRX is doing. Now, SRX is entirely short track and dirt track focused, where iRock in the past, they raced at Daytona. They raced kind of all over the place. So I'm very curious to see what news comes out. Nothing really has been released outside of that. But yeah, Ray Evernham is a part of this. They acquired it. And Ray Evernham actually got his start as an iRock mechanic. So that's way before he even was the crew chief for Jeff Gordon. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think, having another series could be cool. Are we going to see the resurgence of, those drivers that raced in that time? I mean, you're talking about Jimmy Johnson. You're talking about Matt Kenseth. You're talking about Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon. You're talking about, you had Castro Neves racing. You had Harvick. Could this be almost treated as almost like a heritage series where drivers can come out and race their old cars? That could be interesting to see. Maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. can get involved in some way, but all those drivers that were around when iRock was around, I think they could be wanting to be a part of this. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. But as of now, nothing else. No other news. No other news around
and
iRock.
it kind of like what you said, SRX is primarily short track racing, and I've been saying, I really want to see what these guys can do if we put these SRX cars on a road course, and this might be the way that we see it is with the iRock series. So, I do not remember watching any iRock series. Most of those races took place before I was even born.
Correct.
And so, I don't know if I'm making you feel old, John, but
you are. Yeah, we are centuries apart. I was born in the 90s.
Oh yeah, I was born in 2003.
Yeah, you're yeah, that's making me feel really old. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, man. But yeah, well, let's get on to kind of our main topic of discussion here for this episode, which is, we've been talking about Formula One, been talking about NASCAR, a little bit of IndyCar too. All those guys are in their off season. There's still a lot of work that's going on, still a lot of news coming out. But one type of racing series that goes on almost all year round is dirt track racing, and not just local dirt track racing, national and professional series of dirt track racing. Now, we're going to be talking about big things here. First thing I want to talk about is we're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tulsa Shootout, and the famous Chili Bowl, which is super exciting. We're looking at you look at the Tulsa Shootout, which is kind of the precursor to the Chili Bowl. You got micro sprints and you got junior sprints there. It was a lot of great racing we had over there. I had some old friends of mine there, being Grayson Springer and Gavin Boschel, being there and competing, and Gavin Boschel even competing in the Chili Bowl this week.
Absolutely.
Which they are. I believe today is their third day of racing, fourth day of cars being on track. But yeah, I know this is still kind of falls under the category of local short track stuff, which is kind of my wheelhouse. So, but I had you do a little bit of research on the Tulsa Shootout and the Chili Bowl, and I kind of want to hear what your opinion on was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool, to see what happened and what went on in those races. And I come from a majority, asphalt or concrete racing, so it's just cool to watch, because we're exposed to SRX, we're exposed to other late model events going on, but just seeing the amount of attention and the number of cars and the number of entries just across the board, it's just insane. I mean, think about if you had the same number of entries for a stock car race. Mean, it's like what you would see. Oh my gosh, what's the is it the Snowball Derby?
Snowballs. That's the one in Florida. Yeah, Snowball Derby or the All American 400. These big name events for these guys.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's what the Chili Bowl is. That's what the Tulsa Shootout. That's what these are. So it's cool to see that there's still so much attention around all of these events and seeing those cars on track. It's just fun to watch. I mean, dirt track racing, I've raced on iRacing before, so kind of comparing that to what I see, it's fun. It's fun to see what these guys can do, and the limits that they push. That's what I enjoy the most. So yeah, I loved it. So it's gonna be interesting. I want to definitely keep on watching more dirt racing for sure, because it's where all of, I guess technically where all racing started. If you really want to go back to it to do a point,
mainly stock car racing.
Yeah,
I mean, if you really want to go back in ancient Rome where they were racing chariots, but
I mean, they had a couple horsepower there. I mean, you had two, maybe one. But it's just cool to see. It's amazing to see the effort too. I really like the effort that's being put into each one of the cars, because there's how many participants overall? I mean, we're looking at what's a final count? Hello again. What's a final count?
Geez, I think, I mean, I'd have to look it up to get the exact number, but I think it was, man, I want to get the exact number because I think I have the number, but I remember reading the number and it being absurd, and I think I have it, but it's so just absurd what it ended up being this year. And it was
like not 3. Was it 3?
3.
What? For some reason,
hold on. Let me. I'm going to the website right now, so I can to make sure I get the
fact check this,
the actual stuff, because I mean it is actually nope. I need to go to the Facebook page, but look, we had some fantastic racing there, and like I said, and we even saw some big names there. Ricky Thornton Jr., Kyle Busch, and his son Brexton Busch making an appearance there as well.
Yep.
And so that was really exciting to see. Let me see here. It's one of their older photos, so I really, really got to go back. Yes, I am so very sorry. I was not expecting you to ask me this question, or else I would have had it on deck.
Caught you off guard there.
You very much did. You very much did. And
wow.
Well, let's see here. I'm fixing to find this, and then we'll talk about a few more things that kind of what happened, especially with a few cars. A lot of things you see with these dirt races is these cars, they like to get airborne, and Kyle Busch learned that.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch learned that, and his son Braxton has been racing, a lot of the outlaw karts, which are exciting as well. Oh my goodness, I do not remember them. I forget how much they actually posted, and it was a ton. I am literally scrolling. I am scrolling a bunch right now, trying to find this.
It can't be that far down.
Oh, every single race results they posted. They had over 300 races.
370 entries as of Thursday, this says.
That's for the Chili Bowl.
That's for the Chili Bowl, yes.
We're talking, yeah, we're kind of still on the Tulsa Shootout right now.
Yeah.
And as soon as I find this, I promise. Oh, and I think I'm close. All right. The Tulsa Shootout set 2 records with 1,750 entries. All right. That is an insane number.
1,700 cars, 1,700 drivers. That's just absolutely wild.
That is unheard of. And if I can find it, yep, okay. 1,752 entries received for the 2023 Tulsa Shootout with 709 drivers. So it was from 408 cities, 42 states, and 4 countries.
That's wild.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and giving a quick shout out to the folks we saw there. The winners of the Tulsa Shootout were in the stock non-wing and in the stock non-wing and in the wing stock class. We had Frank Flood. Then for the winged outlaw class, we had Emerson Axum. Then winged A class, we had Ashton Torgensen. And then for the non-winged outlaw class, we had Mr. Shootout himself adding a 9th Golden Driller to his resume, Blake Hahn. And then we into the junior sprints, we had Braxton Flatt taking on those. So yeah, that was the Tulsa Shootout. Not a lot of people know about that, but it is definitely really exciting. But now onto a more well-known event, the Chili Bowl. And I actually did a little bit of research earlier today. Do you know why it's called the Chili Bowl?
I do not. I don't know. And inform us.
There's a guy. His name is Bob Bearhill, and his grandfather, or actually his father, owned a chili restaurant called the Chili Bowl, and he was really, and him and his family were really into dirt racing, sprint car, midget racing, and the Tulsa Expo Center had just been built, and there was a bunch of stuff going on there. A lot of it was to help out with the oil manufacturing, because at the time, Tulsa was the #1 producer of oil in the country, or in the world. So that's why the trophy is the Golden Driller. And then and so and they were like, why don't we just have like a dirt race in here? It was just an idea. And they were like, well, and then, they were all sitting down talking about it. And they're like, well, we need a sponsor for this event. And Bob Bearhill, who had kind of taken over production at this point, raised his hand. Just do it. And then 1987, since then, it's been known as the Chili Bowl.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, it's really cool. It's really exciting. And fun fact, I'm not sure if it's still called the Chili Bowl, the company, but they actually help supply the chili for Sonic.
Really? That's pretty cool.
So
okay,
whenever you're eating a coney or a chili hot dog, you're eating a part of racing history, and it's part of the Chili Bowl. So that's really exciting.
Sounds
but
sounds good. Yeah,
this is the biggest event for dirt midget racing,
right,
in possibly the world. It is insane the amount of cars that comes out. Like you said, over 370
that's wild
entries. All right. Now, yes, in the Tulsa Shootout, we had a lot of entries, but those were split over 6 divisions. This is 370 cars for one division. All right.
Yeah.
And all of them are going to come out with, and all of them want the same thing, the Golden Driller and that $20,000 paycheck.
100%. Exactly.
All right. And so it's really interesting. But some of the really interesting stuff we saw was, we have a lot of interesting people who are going to be there. But a few of the other things is a lot of the people who aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson for a while was said not to be there. And then yesterday, Keith Kunz of Keith Kunz Motorsports, one of the most established names in dirt track racing, got a text message from Kyle Larson and said, hey, you got an extra car. So Kyle Larson will be racing in his preliminary race. And if he places in the top 2, he will lock into the A main on Saturday for the Chili Bowl Nationals race.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be exciting to see. But another thing is seeing people like Brad Sweet and Rico Abreu not making an appearance at this event. Rico Abreu, for the past 13 years, has made an appearance at this event and doesn't this too. He was interviewed by Kenny Wallace on Talking with Kenny, and Rico Abreu, who has attended this event for a long time, isn't going to be there because he is actually racing a series in Australia right now.
Yeah.
And that's something not a lot of people know, is that Australia has a very big dirt track scene. So it is very cool to see.
Exactly. Speaking of Australia, this brand that I'm wearing, Lockdown, they're based in Australia.
Really?
Locked Down brand, and they have a lot of drivers on their lineup. They have Larson, they have Ricky Stenhouse, a lot of other names, but a lot of it's dirt. A lot of it's they have a big racing presence in Australia. I mean, look at how big the country is.
Oh, that's without a doubt.
But also, it's very relevant. Look at the Supercar series. You have the Supercars Championship there, so there's that. And you have such a big presence of racing, and it's cool to see. And I think it's where, for example, Shane Van Gisbergen, talking about him for a minute, he's making his way over into the stock car racing here in the States and doing some other one-offs. But we actually haven't talked about this yet. This is going to go kind of not along with the dirt track side.
We get off topic all the time.
We do. But did you see potentially who could be coming back and making a resurgence as a sponsor in the Cup Series? It was in a post with Shane Van Gisbergen and Trackhouse. They tagged this company. They tagged.
No, I haven't seen
Red Bull.
No way.
I don't know to what level. I don't know if it's a contingency.
Wait, isn't that his sponsor in Supercars?
So that is the case. He's sponsored by Coke too. But there was a post that went out. Let me see if I can find it.
That is interesting, seeing Red Bull.
Yep. So he is one of the Red Bull drivers. But let me see if I can find. I don't know if I can find it, but there was a photo that he posted of him signing a contract, and they tagged a bunch of people. And at the last one, it had at Red Bull. I think it was at Red Bull USA or whatever. So
that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be cool to see, because we know how good Shane is, how good Shane was at Chicago, essentially an Australian supercar race for him. He absolutely whooped ass. So, but long story, going back to
kind of embarrassing for us.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a good look.
Getting back to the Chili Bowl,
it's such a good event, such a fun event. I'm excited to see what Larson does, because
me too, and I'm also excited to see what other we got Corey LaJoy in there. We got Corey LaJoy, JJ Yaley, JJ Yaley, and then we have Chase Briscoe is there with his team, and then Alex Bowman. He's not racing, but his team, Alex Bowman Racing, is there as well with their Ally sponsored machine. And so it is really interesting. And then other big names, we got Tanner Holmes and all this other stuff. But yeah, so it's really exciting. But as you can probably already tell, me and John here, we're not well versed in the dirt track racing world. So last night at about, technically it was this morning at about 12:30 a.m. because I had just gotten off work. I sat down and talked to someone who I go to school with and has been around dirt racing his entire life. We're going to call him our dirt track analyst, Rider Poston. So, yes, take it away, past Chad. Hello, future Chad and future John. I am here with our dirt track analyst, Rider Poston. And how you doing tonight, Rider?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's about 12:30 in the morning right now. I just got off work, and you're never asleep. So
I got work at 7 a.m. So
well, there you go. Well,
just happy to be here.
Yeah, you're our dirt track analyst, and go ahead, kind of tell us your background within the sport. Me, I'm really familiar with the asphalt side of stuff, the local short track stuff, but yeah, tell us what kind of your stuff is, what you kind of do within the dirt track scene.
All right. Well, it all started. My dad's cousin used to race sprint cars, modified stock cars, you name it. He raced it. And growing up, my dad would take me along, so I was always in the pits watching him work on stuff. And it just kind of evolved into a sense that that's what I want to do for a living, potentially drive. That's always what I'm hoping for. But I love working on the cars. I love just being involved in the sport, understanding the relationships between teams and tracks and just everything in general about the sport.
Absolutely, yeah. I kind of feel the same way. Mine was a little bit different, but yeah. So today is our dirt themed episode, and we are talking about the Chili Bowl, probably one of, if not the biggest dirt events of the year. There is a massive payout. Now, I watch dirt track racing every now and then, but I don't know a lot of the names like you do. So, in your opinion, I kind of have a few that I want to look out for. Kyle Larson, which was just released today,
Yep.
being,
Yeah.
technically yesterday, being Tuesday, January 9th. So Kyle Larson just got entered.
Yes, he did.
Can you turn your light back on?
Yes, sorry about that.
All right,
Sorry.
you're good. You're good. You're good. We'll cut that part out. Okay, hold on. All right.
I opened Discord.
All right, so okay. Yeah, so I kind of had not really kind of a similar one, but kind of just being around the sport for a while and really falling in love with it. But yeah, today is our dirt themed episode, and right now we are talking about the Chili Bowl Nationals. It takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Tulsa Expo Center, and oh my gosh, what a show it is! We have the Tulsa Shootout leading up to it. We just got done talking about. Now we're on to the Chili Bowl, which goes on this week, and released yesterday, on Tuesday, January 9th, 2024, that Kyle Larson is making a surprise entry into the Chili Bowl. So it's going to be interesting to see, how all that plays out. But, there's him. And then you also got people like Ricky Thornton Jr. and folks like that. But, those are some of the names I know. And those are some of the bigger names for you. Who are ones that, our viewers or even me and John, who are some folks that we should kind of keep our eyes on?
I mean, obviously, you got like Kaylee Bryson. She's just coming off an incredible year this past year. Same with Jade. What is it? Avedissian, I'm pretty sure is how you pronounce that. She's a phenomenal driver. Michael Kofoid, Buddy, is his nickname. He's a very solid driver. And there's this one kid that he's been racing bigger cars for a few years now. Started out in the little outlaw carts up in Northern California, Southern Oregon. It's Tanner Holmes.
Oh yeah, that's one I really like. He has been
my,
so influential in
he's
not just the dirt track scene, but in the racing scene. His videos on YouTube. If people who are listening or watching, search up Tanner Holmes on YouTube. It's great content, and yeah, so I'm really excited. I loved watching him last year, and I'm really excited to see what he can do this year as well. But yeah, keep on going.
Yeah, I've actually talked to Tanner a few times, and he said he's just been doing his best to give everyone else an example of what it is actually like compared to what you see.
Yeah.
For those just your basic viewers or just who like watching the racing but don't fully understand everything that goes into it.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always those two sides of stuff, but there is one name on there that I'm actually really excited to see. And possibility for him to go back-to-back, Logan Seavey, last year's Chili Bowl winner. What are the odds of someone, going back-to-back? Something like the Indy 500, which is basically what this is for the midget cars. No one's ever done it there. I'm pretty sure we've had some people do it within Chili Bowl, but
it just recently happened, yeah.
Yeah, so I know it's hard to win one of those races, let alone two in a row. So, what are your thoughts on him?
There's no doubt about it. He's a solid driver through and through, and you never know what can happen. But with looking at the amount of competition he's going to have, and even Sammy Swindell's back for an appearance. You got
Oh yeah,
him,
that's
Spencer
insane.
Baston, Ashton Torgerson's a great driver, Nick Hoffman, unreal driver, Justin Grant, he's a very solid wingless 410 driver. Even Chase Briscoe's there. JJ Yaley. Can never count out Thomas Meserol. He's a phenomenal driver. Um, then there's a few late model guys that I've seen, and like Kyle Strickler. I'm pretty sure I saw what's his name? Tim McCready.
There you go. There you go.
Obviously Ricky Thornton Jr., but
Absolutely.
we
Which
all
he
know
raced
he's
it. He raced in the Tulsa Shootout, and he was doing well until about
oh,
3 or 4 laps in his
10
main,
laps
and
to
his
go
motor
in the A
expired.
main, and yeah, 10 laps to go in the A main. I think it was
Something like that. It was in the A main, and I felt for him on that. But yeah, we're talking about a lot of big names coming into this event. Even one name which we didn't think we were going to see being, in Kyle Larson as well, who
that shocked me.
Oh yeah. But I think Jeff Gordon said it best when he described it as a
Yeah.
modern day Mario Andretti, which I agree with. But
Yeah,
there's 2 names that I didn't see on there. One I was very surprised I didn't see, and the other one I would have been more surprised if they didn't previous announce it. So that one being the one who previously announced that they weren't going to be at the Chili Bowl this year is Rico Abreu, who is one of the greatest personalities within the sport, and Brad Sweet. I was very surprised to not see him there. I know he does a lot of the World of Outlaws stuff, a lot of the stuff with Napa, but just to not see him out there, that's pretty interesting.
I'm honestly not that surprised.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like he's just really trying to stick this whole high limit thing out and trying to grow that as much as possible as a sport
Brad Sweet?
or series. Yeah,
Is Brad Sweet involved with the High Limit series?
him and Kyle Larson are the ones who created that together.
Oh, okay. I knew it was Kyle Larson. I couldn't think of the other guy. Yeah, but we'll get more into that. We'll get more into that. Yeah, here in a little bit. But yeah. So I guess the big question is, if me and John already haven't made this prediction, we'll make it here shortly after. But who is your pick to win the 2024 Chili Bowl Nationals?
Oh, I feel like Ryan Timms is going to have a great chance at this, but I'm going to love to see what Corey Day can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, that's really good. It's exciting to see a lot of these teams. We got Alex Bowman teams out there, and then, like you said, we got Chase Briscoe, Corey LaJoy, Kyle Larson going to be out there. And
then you got some of your 410 drivers like Tyler Courtney, David Gravel, Ryan Timms, Blake Hahn, Emerson Axum, Chris Wyndham, Cap Henry, Bill Rose. Like, you got a lot of drivers coming from a lot of different aspects of racing just for this one event.
Yeah, and it's super exciting, and it's going to be super exciting to see the rest of this week on. Well, yeah, Ryder, we'll be hearing from you shortly after this. So back to your originally scheduled podcast. Well, thank you so much. We're going to be hearing from Ryder later on in this episode as well. But now let's get on to actually, I do want to ask you. You did a little bit of research on the Chili Bowl. I did too. Who is your pick to win?
So, without Kyle Larson, I don't know.
And
I
that's
think,
fair.
yeah,
I think I just sent you a bunch of stuff and said, "Hey, read
you
this."
did,
And so,
yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to not pick Larson. It really is because of his background and how he wins in everything he gets in, and so.
Yeah. Like I said in my interview with Ryder, Jeff Gordon said it best. Kyle Larson is a modern day Mario Andretti. He
100%.
can hop in anything and wheel the hell out of it.
Yeah. So if I had to pick one, I'm gonna go with probably one of the favorites is gonna be Kyle Larson, and it's hard to bet against him. I know he's gonna be. I mean, it's been not that it's gonna stop him or hinder him by any means, but he just made the entry. Pretty recently. It's not like he's been on that list very long. So could that hinder him a little bit when it comes to experience?
Yeah.
Hell no. So he's my pick. He's my pick.
So he has entered past the registration deadline, which in most racing series, at least the ones that I've competed in, If you register past the register deadline, you either have to pay a more expensive fee, or you have to start in the rear of your heat race, or start in the rear of the B main, or both. You have to do both. And so I'm pretty sure we're going to see him starting here. For me knowing a few of the more names there, it's hard to look past Logan Seavey. With last year's winner, Logan Seavey, he had a fantastic car last year. And then, but then you're looking at names, Ricky Thornton Jr., he's always something. And then anyone with the last name Swindell is going to be a factor there. And then also something that people are really excited to see is Tanner Holmes out there, one of the most influential people on social media when it comes to dirt track racing and just racing in general. He has a massive social media following, posts a ton of YouTube videos, which are very entertaining to watch. I highly recommend going and watching his videos. But yeah, I mean, it's sitting here right now. I'm gonna go Logan Seavey. Logan Seavey. He's gonna go. He's gonna make it 2 in a row, which isn't unheard of at the Chili Bowl. But yeah. But now let's kind of move on to our last topic of discussion here. Well, actually, before we do that, we got to do our local racing report.
Let's do it. So, where are we at today, Chad?
Well, like I said earlier in the podcast, this past weekend, I was in Dillon, South Carolina at Dillon Motor Speedway. And anytime I go to a local short track that we haven't mentioned on the podcast yet, I like to shout it out. So they had their 14th annual New Year's Bash the first weekend of January. And what a show it was. And so they had their Challenger division, their U-Car division, which is their front-wheel drive division, their mini stock division, 2 legend car races, and a street stock race. So, in the Challenger division, 3rd place, we have Ricky Locklear. 2nd place, Greg Peterson. And taking home the Challenger feature win on Saturday night, Jason Calhoun. Then for the U-Car division, in 3rd place, we have Jason Garwood. 2nd place, Robert Hall. And taking home the U-Car feature win Friday night, Brandon Collins. Next up, we have the Legend Car division for Friday night. Their first of 2 features. In their first race, which at the end of the race, there was a bunch of unhappy people. Yeah, I mean, it was some hard racing, but we had some unhappy folks. 3rd place, Dylan Thomas. 2nd place, Cody Carlton. And 1st place, my best friend and co-worker, Michael Crafton.
There you go.
So that was good. And then we shift to Sunday, which Legend Cars were first up that night. 3rd place, Jake Trito. 2nd place, Josh Spees. And sweeping the weekend in the Legend Cars, Michael Crafton. I had a good weekend.
You did, yeah. He did great.
It was a really fun, really good weekend. Yeah, congratulations to Michael. And he's still in the Carolinas right now. He's getting stuff ready for Winter Nationals. But yeah, now looking at our mini stock division, 3rd place, Matt Briggs. 2nd place, Neil Meredith. And 1st place, BJ Thrasher. Looking at our street stocks, their 100-lap street stock event. And I need to pull something up here to make sure my information is correct. Here we go. So, 3rd place, we have Adam Gray. 2nd place, we have Albie Ovitt. And in 1st place of this race was not the first car to cross the start-finish line. The first car to cross the start-finish line under the checkered flag was Jeff Sparks. However, after post-race inspection, it was deemed that his oil pan was illegal and did not fit the specifications for his motor. Therefore, he was thrown out, and Gary Ledbetter was deemed the winner of the 14th annual New Year's Bash. So if you would like your local short track shouted out on the Flag to Flag podcast, email flagtoflag10@gmail.com or hit us up on any one of our social media platforms. Listen out for those at the end of the episode. And also make sure you go and visit your local short track and bring a friend.
Boom.
All righty. So that was a very fun weekend. Very fun. It was a headache traveling though. Was a headache.
I can imagine.
I mean, it was a headache for me, but yeah, let's move on to our last topic of discussion here. And I got this idea, and I kind of added on to it from another dirt track guy who does podcasts. I'm pretty sure his name is Dirt Track or Dirt Tracker or something like that. But it's this, and it's something pretty interesting. So one of the most exciting and entertaining forms of dirt track racing is sprint car racing, which I don't know how much of that you've watched, John. But I've seen them race.
Not too much. I want to watch more of it though.
Yeah,
not too much.
But I don't know if you've even driven them on iRacing. But even if you have, bro, they are so fun to drive. They have those giant wings which just stick them to the ground, and it's very entertaining to watch. Now but there's something interesting here that we have with Sprint Car Series racing. We have a lot of local series and a few regional series, but when it comes to a national series, when we have something like what I do with the Legend Cars, yes, we have our local series, and yes, we have a few regional series as well, but we have one major national series, and at the end of each year, we have a national champion. Well, right. In sprint car racing, there are 3 national championships. And so that being the World of Outlaws, the High Limit Sprint Cars, and the USAC. And so World of Outlaws, which is, in my opinion, the most prestigious. It's been there a while. The High Limit Sprint Car Series, which is owned by Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson. Right. They bought the series off of Tony Stewart, who had the All-Star circuit. And then, of course, we have the USAC National Series. And what's really interesting is if you look at the schedules for all these guys and you look at the payouts, they're all very similar. You can go to either one of these series and make a decent living, which is another really interesting thing, is that these guys are making a living off of this style of racing, which is very cool for me to see. But but like we heard earlier, and I'll get your opinion on this here in a little bit, John, but like we heard earlier with the Chili Bowl, we had our dirt track analyst, Rider Poston, come and give his opinion on this. And so, take it away once again, past Chad. And we are back with our dirt track analyst, Rider Poston. We just got done talking about the Chili Bowl Nationals. Now we're going to get on to our other topic of discussion here tonight. Why there are 3 major national series for sprint car racing. Sprint car racing, probably one of, if not the most popular form of dirt track racing. Definitely one of the most exciting, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But people have, and there's a bunch of races too. These guys race almost all year round. But what's really interesting is, unlike NASCAR, NASCAR being the pinnacle of stock car racing, there are 3 major national series for dirt track racing, being the World of Outlaws series, the High Limit Sprint Car series created by Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet, and then we have the USAC National Tour. So, do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing to have these 3? I would love to see, one great national champion, because you look at a lot of these schedules that these guys, because all of them have released their 2024 schedules, they're all racing at very similar tracks. They're all going to Knoxville, they're all going to Eldora. So it's kind of interesting to see all that. But what is your opinion on having 3 big series like this?
I mean, it's no different from what before it was High Limit, whenever it was still the All-Star Circuit of Champions. The way it was with the All-Stars, it gave the local guys a chance. That was more like your starting out series. It sucks to see it go in that aspect, because it helps out all the local drivers who want to go take that next step to become more competitive and move up in the world of racing, I guess. But then there's also the aspect of, it's great for the industry that High Limit took over. Those big names coming in, taking a grip of the sport and just helping push it to what we want it to be like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really cool when we see kind of these non-national sanctioned event races, like the Eldora Million. That's a race I look forward to every year. Yeah. I mean, one, it's $1 million race, so these guys are going to be going at it hard. But also, it's not affiliated with World of Outlaws. It's not affiliated with High Limit. It's not affiliated with USAC. It's Eldora puts on the show, and you get to see drivers from all these different disciplines, drivers who have never raced against each other, drivers who've raced against each other over after their lives. So it's really interesting to see stuff like that. But, with out of the 3, which one do you think is the most prestigious one? For me personally, I feel like it's got to be World of Outlaws. Yeah. High Limit, I feel like is still, you see some fantastic racing with the high limit sprint car series. I mean, and plus you got two massive names behind it, being Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet. But to me, I got to look at World of Outlaws because that is the action that those guys put on is phenomenal. So I got to go with that. What do you think is, I don't want to call it the pinnacle, but yeah, the most prestigious of the three?
I mean, it's hard to say now because of how young High Limit actually is compared to what the World of Outlaws is and what the World of Outlaws has created. Even for the late model side of everything, the World of Outlaws was the starting point of the major national touring series in the United States. And nothing can take that away from them.
Absolutely, yeah. And but if we're looking at stuff like that, the High Limit Sprint Car Series, that is solely sprint car racing. And then we look at the World of Outlaw Series. It has both sprint car and dirt late model, as well as a few of their other feeder series as well. Then they have the Midget Outlaw Series, as well as a handful of other series.
The Super Dirt Car Series for big blocks and stuff.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, looking back at USAC, USAC caters to a bunch of people. Me, yes, I'm a little bit biased with USAC. I raced under the USAC banner in Quarter Midgets, now the NASCAR Youth Series for 4 years. It's where I got my start in motorsports. Thank you. But yeah, you also get a lot more variety within that. However, it's primarily sprint car midget style racing. So yeah, and so it's really interesting to see those three, and and it's hard because it's almost like they're competing with each other, because in my opinion, you have world-class drivers in each and every one. World of Outlaws produces fantastic racing. High Limit produces fantastic racing, and USAC produces fantastic racing. However, it does suck because it's like at the end of the year we have 3 national champions, all for the same style of car. Which and I guess the more the merrier. But that's one of the big things about it is that having one makes it more prestigious, in my opinion. You might think completely differently, but out of the 3, which one would you consider to be your favorite? Mine would have to be World of Outlaws, mainly because I just love the racing that those guys put on. But out of those 3, which one would you consider to be your favorite?
When it comes to sprint cars, it has to be World of Outlaws. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I remember when those guys went to Nashville Fairgrounds, and that was the first time I ever saw them. And one of the main reasons that it is my favorite one is when you hear the words, they're 4 wide going down the back straightaway. And I remember the first time I ever heard it. All right, and I remember the first time I ever heard it, and it was Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. You wanted the best. You got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws. And that's one of those moments that it sends chills down your spine, it's down your whole body.
You have to be there to remember it and believe it.
Oh, yeah. And
there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, and in a way and if you listen to that, they're taking a jab at the High Limit in the USAC series. Often imitated, never duplicated. So they're kind of taking a jab. And do you think it'd ever be a possibility for these 3 series or 2 of these series to ever work together, possibly combined to become one bigger series? Because I'm pretty sure that the reason High Limit was created was because Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson didn't like how some of the things on the World of Outlaws and the USAC side were being ran, and so they kind of wanted to make their own thing. I could be wrong on that, but yeah.
Well, obviously, Kyle's ties with NASCAR and Tony Stewart and stuff. He was the former owner of the All-Star Circuit, and from my knowledge is Tony was slowly getting out of it and saw the All-Stars as more of a drag and saw that Kyle and Brad wanted to start their own thing up and just sold them the rights to the All-Stars, which now has the funds for High Limit.
Yeah, and so when you have that kind of funding, and one of the great things about that is, for the longest time, and I remember when I was younger, it was still kind of considered this, where that type of stuff was still considered a local type of short track style racing, which
Yeah.
they still go to a bunch of, local short tracks. But then you have tracks like Eldora and Knoxville, which are some of the
Hmm.
biggest tracks for sprint car racing. Like those guys there, like that's their Daytona, that's their Indianapolis. Even with the guys at Chili Bowl, that's their Daytona, that's their Indianapolis for these guys. And so it for a while was still looked at as kind of like, now these guys are making a like drivers are making a living off of this stuff, which you could that was only possible if you were in IndyCar, if you were in one of the top 3 NASCAR series, if you were in Formula One. Now there is something that like if you want to buy a NASCAR stock car, you got to make 12 different phone calls and all this other stuff. To buy a sprint car, you just got to, yes, it's going to be a hefty check, but it's a lot easier access to. It's a lot like this is one of those national series.
If you have the money, you can race.
Exactly. Like if you have the money, it's a really easy step in. And yeah, and like I've been saying, the dirt track stuff, that is some of the most exciting forms of racing. I'm sorry, I still love my asphalt racing. That's what I've grown up doing. I still love it. Come on, man. But yeah, well, hey, thank you so much, Ryder, for joining us here today. We will be, if you are watching this on YouTube, all of Ryder's social media will be in the link down below in the description. But yeah, back to your regularly scheduled. Thank you so much to Rider Poston for joining us. Like I said, we're going to leave the link for his Instagram in the description of our YouTube. So, yeah, definitely go check that out. Yeah, but what's your kind of opinion? I know you haven't done that much research on it, but, we have 3 major series here.
Right.
And the only time we really see these guys all come together is for the Eldora Million, which is, it's not sanctioned by, I'm pretty sure World of Outlaws, the sanctioning body, officiates it, but yet you don't really. It's not, it's not for any national series points. It's just $1 million race. So,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on having 3 major series like this?
It's interesting that they haven't combined in some sort. And I'm going to use the example of the 2 semi-professional leagues, the XFL and the USFL, the Extreme Football League and United States Football League. Well, they have formed together and created the UFL, the United Football League. I'm very curious to see what happens in the future. Do I think it's a bad thing? No. Do I think that it levels the playing field where, some people may, slight dynamics may be different here, different names, all this stuff. People may have their own preferences on which ones or which series they want to participate in. Great. Does it make it hard for a viewer? Kind of. Because it's, which one is the premier? I mean, World of Outlaw, obviously, I would put from a notoriety perspective a little bit higher just because it's been around forever. And, it's had the likes of Tony Stewart. You had, a lot of different people involved there, but I see it as more of a question mark, as in what is it going to be in the future? Because if they all came together and created the USCS, United.
That actually is a series. I think it's actually called the not USCS, but I think it's called like the United Sprint Car Series. I'm not sure. There is another series that that does go around quite a bit, but
yeah, I think is it an issue? I don't think so, because it's people are going to gravitate towards one or the other, whether they're a driver, team, people who want to get into the sport. It provides multiple avenues. It's not like there's for stock cars, if you want to not make money, but if you want to get to the Premier Series, you have to go to NASCAR. That's it.
Oh yeah.
That's really it. Unless you want to go overseas and try something in maybe Australia, which is not, purely stock cars. But for dirt, I think it provides a little bit more opportunity.
Oh yeah.
To have more, Now, I am curious to see if at some point in time they're like, guys, we could be doing a lot better if we all combined all the best of all of these into one and see what happens. I don't know if they've tried that before. I'm not well educated on that space, but I think it could be something that we see in the future, just given to what we've seen in some other types of sports, like I mentioned, the XFL and the USFL. There was no reason to have really two, and now they're combined. So I'm curious to see what happens in the future.
And
sure.
we kind of saw something like that in the pro and super late model asphalt racing side. We a lot of them were under the CRA banner. We had you had all these different series, and we all kind of came together to form to reform ASA, American Speed Association, which was very popular in the 80s and the 90s, which has now come back for the super late model shows. And so it's really interesting to see that. And but kind of piggybacking off of what you said, they could make, you see a lot when you see like these divisions split up, car counts dwindle. These guys are still pulling massive car counts.
Oh yeah,
for all of these events, and there's guys who what they'll do is, if they're not, if one of the series has an off weekend, which I'm pretty sure World of Outlaws doesn't have any off weekends, they'll go run in some other events, So like if High Limit or USAC has an off weekend, they'll go run a World of Outlaws event because they're very similar rule packages, that's kind of what it is. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I would love to see one, have one big national champion. But it kind of sees where it is. USAC has been around for forever, and they are kind of they do a lot of the with the sprint cars and the midget style racing. And then World of Outlaws was the first ever series to premiere a national late model series for dirt racing, with the pro and super late models. So it was very interesting as World of Outlaws. Now, and then we have, the High Limit series, which has two massive names in the dirt track world backing it, being Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson, kind of backing that. And so, each are all very respective. Each produce beautiful, fantastic racing. And, is it a problem? Maybe not. Will they all come together one day? Who knows? So yeah, that's really exciting. But yeah, I think that's about it. All we got for this episode.
Yeah, should be good. So if you've listened this far, we thank you so much for listening. And if you want to see more content, make sure to subscribe to either the YouTube channel. We put out all of our podcasts in video form if you're listening to that right now and watching us, or we are on your devices as an audio. So we can be on Spotify, and we are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be joining some more podcast platforms this year too. And follow us on all of our social media sites and social media channels at Flag to Flag Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. And on Instagram, it's at Flag to Flag _podcast. I believe that's correct. I believe that's what it is. Is that what it is, Chad?
If you're listening to this on YouTube or either one, it'll be in the link below. So
Flag to Flag _podcast on
Flag
Instagram.
to Flag _podcast. All right, sweet.
For
yeah.
Sure.
So yeah. Well, yeah. Well, thank you, John. And
thank you. Yeah. We'll see you in maybe a week, I would guess. Go back to weekly podcast. I think we should.
Nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So we'll see you on the next one.
Happy New Year.